Welcome to the Not Bobby Durkin Show because I'm not Bobby Durkin's here, at least. Well, as I said, not here. Today I'm going to go over the 2023 Duke Blue Devils football team. But before I do, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, subscribe, hit the thumbs up. Heck, hit the thumbs down. Either way, it is free, and I appreciate you being here. If you're like me, and God help you if you are, when you think of Duke, you think of this guy. Okay, that's a lie. You think of this guy. Sorry. Duke is not a football school. You would have to go back to around 2014 to a few good seasons that David Cutcliffe had. They were not championship seasons for Duke football. They would be qualified as such. And then you would have to go to the late 80s when a very young Steve Spurrier shared, from what I remember, they were co-champions of the ACC with Virginia. But other than that, Duke football has been embarrassing for the past 40 plus years. Who can forget the early 2000s when they had two seasons back to back where they didn't win a game? Yeah, they were what, 0-22. What a way off to kick off the millennium. But last year, the 2022 football team with first-year head coach Mike Elko, they went 9-4. Folks, you're not hearing things. They went 9-4 last year. Now, I'm going to share their schedule with you, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you this is one of the cleanest forms I could find and online. And I want you to look at their games. Now, they did not play unbelievable opponents, but folks, this is Duke. They always find a way to lose. They always do. All right. So, with that said, for some reason, I cannot share their schedule right now. So, I'm going to figure this out as I'm talking to you. But their 4 losses last year was by a total of 16 points. They lost to Kansas last year by 8. So that means the other 3 losses accounted for the other 8 points. So I'm going to share the FBSschedules.com. I really don't like this look, but this is the only thing that will allow me to share it right now. The only tool that I could share it. Yes, I could have sat down and made out some great schematic. Sorry, folks, I don't have that much time. Kudos to those who do. But I want you to look at this. Now, the truth is, these teams are not impressive, but as I said, this is Duke football. They beat Temple 30-0. You see the win over Northwestern. Northwestern was terrible. You see them lose to Kansas, but remember, that's when Kansas was kind of hot at the time. Then you see them play against Virginia, the win there. They lost in overtime to Georgia Tech. But here's the game that really says a lot to me. The North Carolina Tar Heels. They had a shootout with them. Now, I know somebody out there is going to go, well, their defense is terrible. True, they do not have a world-class defense. But Duke football has an incredible quarterback. He's a 6'3", 210-pound, dual-threat quarterback. He's a junior, and his name is Riley Leonard. Now, in the description below this video, I have his highlights from the ACC channel. I almost played them here, but I really don't feel like getting a copyright strike. But folks, I want to tell you this. Duke returns. They return 8 starters on the offense. Now, that includes Riley Leonard, the quarterback, This guy accounted for almost 3,000 yards passing. He, between passing and rushing, I think he had around 800 yards right off the top of my head, rushing yards on the ground. He is a true dual threat quarterback. You've heard me define dual threat quarterback. A guy who's athletic, who can kind of throw the ball, is not a dual threat quarterback. That's a team trying to make do because they really don't have a quarterback. This guy, he can throw the ball in places that only his receivers can catch it. And believe it or not, I'm not saying that they're wide receiver U, but the Duke Blue Devils actually has a bunch of seniors at wide receiver, and they're actually bringing in the football. They're not just dropping it. So he's putting the ball there. They're catching it. So I know Duke historically is terrible. This Duke team is very different. Once again, I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship or make a run at the college football playoff. But considering their Duke, considering that those 4 losses that you can see right there, that those 4 losses was only by 16 points. That's really impressive. And if you want to see an impressive, and I'm going to move on from Riley Leonard, but I'm telling you, this guy, he can play football. They have design runs with him. You have to respect his athleticism. You can't play soft up on his wide receivers. He will put the ball near them. And from what I've seen, they were making the catch. So moving a little faster, I'm going to go through this 2022 season. If you want to see a really good run from Riley Leonard, you need to watch the one against Boston College. And he did very well against North Carolina. Very, very well. They lost to Pitt, but you see 2 points. That right there, when I'm seeing a 2-point loss here, I'm seeing a 3-point loss there, 3-point loss there. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a team with a first-year head coach who has brought his unit together as much as he can in his first year. And he's utilizing the talent that he has. And I'm telling you, you need to check out the highlight video that I have there. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you their schedule as for this 2023 season as I talk about who they have returning on the offense and the defense. Now, on the offense, as I said, they're returning 8 starters. 3/5 of their offensive line is coming back. They did get a graduate transfer offensive lineman from Stanford. So he's going to be on the line. His name is Jake Hornibrook. He's going to be on the line. This guy has a lot of experience. They only have 1 sophomore on the offensive line. So between the athleticism of Riley Leonard and just their seniority on the line, their experience, it could be a problem for a lot of football teams. As I said, the wide receivers, the names that you need to know about: Jordan Moore, Jalen Calhoun, Eli Pancol. These guys are all seniors, except for Jordan Moore. Jordan Moore is a junior, and also a guy named Samir Hagens. This guy had 5 touchdowns receiving last year. But they are very competitive. So you have to worry about them. So on the defensive side of the ball, they returned 7 players, starting with their interior linemen. They're 6'3", over 300-pound, 5th-year senior Dwayne Carter. This guy was all ACC in other preseason books. I did not see the release today. I admit that, but I'll guarantee you he was on the preseason all ACC team. This guy looks like somebody who would play for Clemson. He really does. Big. He's aggressive. He's a smart football player. So you have to respect him. Now, the problem with Duke is that their defense gave up almost 40 points per game last year. So there's some issues there, even though they're returning those 7 starters, right? Got Tiger Paul Craven in here. It's good to see you too. But just to move a little faster here, they returned Dwayne Carter, and they returned R.J. Oben on the line. Their entire defensive line is back. Where they might get some help is from their two cornerbacks who transferred in. One's from Texas A&M, and that's Miles Jones. He has a lot of experience at Texas A&M, okay? He's played in the SEC. He's had to play against all the big boys. Even if he didn't do just amazing and you're like, well, he transferred to Duke, he still played against elite competition. So when he's having to go in, you'll see the schedule in just a second, and he's having to play against teams like, Lafayette and Northwestern and UConn and even Louisville and Wake Forest, Virginia, Pitt. He's seen better talent. Okay? He's seen better talent than these guys. When you play at Texas A&M and you get that many starts, you're going to see better talent. And then a very well-known name, Al Blades Jr. from the University of Miami, he's transferring in. So maybe that will help them shave some of those points off, because I'm going to tell you, by looking at their 2022 schedule, had they had a little help on the defense, because the offense was going out and doing their job, had they had a little help from the defense, you heard me say they lost 4 games by a total of 16 points. One of those games accounted for 8 points. So the other 3 losses accounted for the other 8 points. It's not out of the realm of possibility that last year that they very well could have went 12-1. You could argue they would have played a better bowl, and might have lost it because they would have played a better team. But it's very, very interesting. So let's go ahead and dive into this. And I'm trying to move a little quicker because people like shorter videos. I could ramble. Trust me. I think you already know that. Let's go to the 2023 Duke football schedule. Now, there's a little team up here that I think you've heard of. I think I've heard of them. They're the Clemson Tigers. That's Labor Day night. Now, folks, if you know anything about Wallace Wade Stadium, they did some work not too long ago. Now it's up to 40,000 people. Clemson's used to playing in front of 85,000. 85,000 people who are nuts. But they go up there to the library of Wallace Wade Stadium, where there's no history other than losing. You have to go over to the basketball facility, over to Cameron, to talk about winning. But first-year coach Mike Elko had them rolling. He has the majority of his supporting cast back. Most importantly, he has Riley Leonard. He has Dwayne Carter anchoring that defensive line. And folks, I'm going to tell you right now, I have to keep saying this because I know certain people who watch this video. They're going to say, "Did you hear that guy? He said that Clemson is going to lose to Duke, and he said that Duke is a front runner for the national championship." I never said that. I just said they are not the Duke of old. You have to respect this football team. If you don't, you might have an upset, no matter who you are, on your hands. So that Monday night, Clemson goes all the way up to Durham, North Carolina, only about 5 hours from Clemson. I think Clemson fans are going to travel really well for this game. Clemson fans travel well, folks. If you know nothing about Clemson and their fans, other than, Dabo Swinney's the coach and their colors are orange and white and a little bit of purple here and there, folks, let me tell you this. You have no clue about their fans. We travel very well. We can turn, especially in a small stadium like that, we can turn an away game into a home game really quick. So I think Clemson is going to travel pretty well up to Durham. It's going to be Labor Day weekend. But it's a weird game. It's a weird game. When this time was announced, I went, "Whoa, that's weird." They're starting off with Duke, and Duke's come off of this weird season where they actually looked respectable. They have a guy that you have to respect at quarterback. So I will do my Clemson preview before the season kicks off. But I'm telling you, Clemson fans, the goal here for this game is to get out of this game without having to show too much of your playbook to Florida State, because Florida State on day one has to show their playbook because they're playing LSU the day before we play Duke. The goal is for us to show as little as we possibly have to and get out of there with a W. That following Saturday, Duke plays Lafayette. That should be an easy win. Next up, they're playing Northwestern. Northwestern is in shambles. I fully expect them to win this game. Now, the next game up is at UConn. Jim Mora, former NFL coach. He took over them last year. And it was not to the same degree or level of success, but considering it's UConn, he didn't do too bad of a job. This is a game, believe it or not, Duke needs to watch. Duke doesn't need to go into this game and go, they're UConn, and yeah, I know we're Duke, but man, did you see what we did last year? And especially if Duke plays Clemson well, even if they lose, even if they play them well and walk out of that game going, man, we just played really well with Clemson. We came out, gave it our all. We might have got a loss, but we've got it together. We've beat the other two teams. We're playing UConn. You have to be careful. Now, this is a game, Notre Dame coming into town. There's a lot of questions with Notre Dame playing against Sam Hartman. They've had to play against him a lot. He's been in the ACC for 25 years. And you should see the ticket price for that game. Most likely they're going to lose this game. Most likely they're going to lose the Clemson game. Then they're off. Then they have NC State coming into town. You know, they're only 20 minutes away, something like that. This is a game that they're probably going to have to lick their wounds and focus on playing good, solid football. But that's a winnable ball game for them with the team they have right now. Then they have to go to Florida State. Now, by this time in the season, we'll know if Florida State is worthy of the preseason hype or not. They're a good football team, yes, but a potential playoff contender, I think that's a stretch. You have to respect them, but I think it's a stretch. I feel like this is loss number 3. I know I'm not going into, the X's and O's. Other people are way better at that than me, but I'm just going to get to the point. I believe this is loss number 3. NC State's kind of a toss, is a toss-up, I admit it. But I believe that they can definitely beat NC State. Then they go to Louisville. Louisville, Brian Brom he's taken over there. He's back at his alma mater. They're all happy. Scott Satterfield didn't pan out like they thought he was going to pan out. He took over a mess. This is a game, especially how the Florida State game goes, and possibly if they drop the game to NC State, this could be a nail in the coffin for the season if they're not focused. Not because Louisville is that good, it's because maybe they're looking at last season and going, man, we're just not panning out like we thought we were. You are playing a tougher schedule though, Duke. But they should win this ball game. Then they go and they play Wake Forest. It's at home. It's a Tobacco Road match. They've done this several times. They should win that ball game. They lost a heartbreaker last year to North Carolina in Durham. Now, once again, for those of you who really don't know the geographical relationship between Duke, North Carolina, and North Carolina State, they're basically all there bunched together within 30 minutes of each other or less. But they lost this game by 3 points, and they lost it to Drake May, who a lot of people believes could be the first overall pick in the NFL draft. Most people leans towards Caleb Williams. I would draft Drake May before I draft Caleb Williams. That's a whole nother subject. But there's no Josh Downs for Drake May to throw to. You still have to respect him because he's Drake May, and he's incredible. But maybe they could get some revenge here. That's a toss-up game to me. That's not a done deal that they're going to lose to North Carolina just because they lost to them last year and they're going to Chapel Hill. That's not a done deal. Now, I would tell you, if they've had a few blowouts during the season, maybe the wheels come off, yeah. But I don't see that with this team, especially with Elko, Leonard, and Dwayne Carter. Then they play at Virginia. Virginia is just, I remember when you had to respect Virginia as a football team. Like home telephones, those days are gone. That's a win. Then they play Pitt. Pitt has to come down to Durham. You got Phil Dracovic. He left Boston College. Now he's at Pitt because Keaton Slovis left and went to BYU. That's kind of a toss-up game, but I would not be shocked if Duke actually won the game. In fact, I lean towards Duke winning this game. So let's just say definitively that they lose to Clemson, Notre Dame, and Florida State. That's only 3 losses, folks. I mean, that's another 9-win season. And what would really be interesting, and God forbid it's this team right here, is if they could pull an upset between Florida State and Notre Dame. Definitely between Clemson. But I don't believe they're going to beat Clemson. I believe Clemson's going to be way too focused on this game. You have Clemson's full attention. And I think that could prove dangerous for Duke. They're getting their full attention because the next week Clemson has to play Charleston Southern in Death Valley. And the week after that, they have to play Florida Atlantic. The only interesting thing about playing Florida Atlantic is that Tom Herman's the head coach. So I went a little over on my time here to review the team. I highly encourage you to go watch highlights of Duke's football team from last year. This year, I'm saying at best, I believe that they will go 9-3. If they have a few blowouts, you could see a loss there to maybe NC State, North Carolina, definitely. Those are definitely toss-up games. I'm telling you, folks, keep your eyes on UConn. Just for me saying that, UConn won't win a game all year. They will lose every game. But you have to respect them, especially after they did what they did last year. Well, folks, I'm saying the Duke Blue Devils at best, 9-3. We could see them, if the wheels started coming off, lose a couple of more games than that, maybe stare down, a 7-5, which is still great for Duke. If things really go bad, we could be looking at 500. I just don't see that. I think Mike Elko with Riley Leonard, Dwayne Carter, he's dialed in, folks. He's dialed in. So that is my preview of the 2023 Duke football team. Looking back, looking forward, and my synopsis is you need to respect these guys. Don't treat them with the same contempt that you would treat them with in past years just because they've historically been terrible. But this will be an interesting game. Again, if you're new here, thanks for joining me. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, pass this around in any forums that you have. And if you would like for me to preview a few other teams or a whole bucket full of them, let me know and I'd be happy to do that. Leave it in the comments section. Thanks for joining me. I will be doing previews of Clemson. Probably going to talk about South Carolina. Yes, I know. South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Ohio State's and Ohio State and even a few other teams. I appreciate you joining me. I'll catch you next time. And as always, go Tigers.